Hey everyone, Sarah here with sewingpartsonline.com and welcome back to the Beginner's Guide to Sewing. This is episode 18. Today we are going to learn how to make adjustments to flat patterns, which sounds scary, but it's actually super easy. Now this is something that I really wish I learned as a beginner, and I had no clue how to do it until later down the road when I just kind of jumped into it. Learning how to make adjustments to your flat patterns, especially if you are going into clothing, is super important. Nobody has the same body type, and I don't know about anybody else out there, but if you've tried to make your patterns and you put on these clothes and you thought they were gonna look great, but they actually looked really bad, then you are not alone. I went through the same thing. So I'm gonna just throw you into simple pattern adjustments. I promise it's gonna make a difference in the long run, especially if you just start out with simple clothing patterns. Don't go crazy tailored, just something simple, and I promise you will have good results. So without further ado, let's jump right in. So the first thing you want to do when you get your pattern is look at the sizes listed on the back. But beware, because the size you shop for at the mall isn't always going to be the same as what's listed on the pattern. This is because many manufacturers have their own versions of, say, a size 6 dress. Because actual number sizes vary, especially in the United States, you'll have to find your size by using your actual measurements. To take your own measurements, you want to be just wearing your undergarments, and you'll also need your tape measure. So let's go over some of the common measurements you'll need and how to take them. Just a tip, you don't want the tape to be too tight, but rest comfortably. High bust. With this, you bring the tape around your back, under your armpits, and across your chest/sternum. With this measurement, the tape won't be parallel to the floor. It'll be usually at an upward angle because it's going from your back to rest above your breasts. The full bust. The tape measure will be at the same spot on your back, but this time you wrap the tape under your arms and across the fullest part of your bust, which is usually right at the nipple line. The tape should be parallel to the floor at this point. The full bust also shows us the apex, which is basically the fullest point of your full bust, usually right at the nipple. Apex to apex is measured straight across. You can also use the apex as a reference for length. I like to use the apex to determine length of like my shirts because I am petite. This way I end up with a shirt and not a dress. You can also use your shoulder to waist measurement to help with the length, or your waist to, well, wherever you want the hem to fall. Natural waist. This is the most narrow part of your abdomen. You'll use this measurement even if your pattern is for like a low waist skirt. You can find this by bending to the side, and where the skin fold forms is your natural waist. Or you can tie narrow elastic around your waist. Wherever it settles is the most narrow part. Again, the tape should be parallel to the floor. Hips. This is actually measuring the fullest part of your tush. So really, you wrap the measuring tape around your rear and across your pelvis. Again, the tape should be parallel to the floor. Just a side note, if your thighs or your like high hip measurement, maybe at your belly button, is larger than your hip measurement, then you want to use that in place of the traditional hip measurement. So now that you know your measurements, it's time to pick the corresponding size. Depending on your body type, you may have to use patterns of multiple sizes or combine two to get the right one. Thankfully, patterns these days come with multiple sizes all on one piece, so really it's just a matter of connecting the lines. So let's start with two very common pattern adjustments. So let's say your measurements put you right dab in the middle of two sizes. For instance, your waist is a 31 and your hips are a 41. Luckily, you have that standard 10 inches between your waist and your hips, but being in between sizes will definitely need to be fixed. So here's what you do. Step 1, pick the smaller size, which is 30 inches, aka my size 16. Now I need to do a little math. I'm going to take my waist measurement, which is 31, and subtract the measurement listed under the smaller size, which is 30 inches. So 31 minus 30 equals 1. This means I need a total of 1 extra inch to make this pattern fit. Step 2, I have 4 seams to this skirt, so I'll divide that 1 inch by 4 seams, equaling 1/4 of an inch. Step 3, add that 1/4 of an inch to both side seams of the size 16 pattern. This pattern has straight lines, so I can use a regular straight edge ruler. If your lines are curved, you'll need to use a curved ruler, which you'll see in the next alteration. Repeat the adjustment to your back skirt piece and any waistbands you have, and you're all finished. Now, what if your measurements fall under different pattern sizes? For instance, let's say my waist measurement falls under a size 14 and my hip measurement falls under a size 18. Don't worry, it is a simple fix. Here's what you do. Step 1, measure the distance from your waist down to your hip and store that number in your head, because we're going to come back to that in a few minutes. So let's say 7 inches. Line your ruler up along the waistline and mark 5/8 of an inch down from that waist pattern line right at the side seam. I say 5/8 of an inch because that's your standard seam allowance. If your pattern calls for half an inch or a full inch, you would mark down a full inch or half an inch, whatever the seam allowance is. Remember that number I told you to keep in the back of your head? I said mine was 7 inches. So I need to measure 7 inches down from that 1/8 marking I just did right along the side seam. Now I need to redraw the side seam so it tapers into the larger hip size. But the line has to be slightly curved here or it's going to look really awkward. So go ahead and grab your curved ruler and simply merge the lines together. Remember to repeat on your back skirt piece and you're finished. So I hope that this was helpful, and I hope it gives everyone a little bit of courage to look at patterns in a new light and try it out. I really recommend just jumping in. If you have a couple mess ups, that's okay. That's how you learn. Don't be too hard on yourself. And as always, if you have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave them in the comment section below. You can always send us an email on sewingpartsonline.com. Send us a message on Facebook at facebook.com/sewingpartsonline. Twitter at Sewing Parts, Instagram, Google+, Pinterest, we're everywhere. Feel free to reach out. We are happy to help. We have been there. We've all been beginners. We want you to be successful. So until next time, bye-bye.